You've spent too long waiting for people to tell you you're enough. You've shaped parts of yourself to fit expectations that were never designed for you. You've silenced your thoughts, softened your edges, and guessed your worth, all in the hope that the world would finally say, "You're good enough now." But that moment never really comes, does it? Because the truth is, no amount of approval can fill the void that self-denial creates. You can't find peace in a world that profits from your insecurity. The world will never hand you validation. It will only hand you reasons to doubt yourself. Think about how much time you've lost trying to please people who don't even understand you. How much energy you've wasted trying to prove your goodness, your talent, your potential, to people who are too caught up in their own insecurities to recognize yours. And here's the reality. No matter how much you give, no matter how hard you try, someone will always think you're too much, too loud, too quiet, too emotional, too different. You can't win the game of approval because the rules were never made for you to win. The goalposts keep moving. The moment you meet one expectation, another one appears. The world teaches you to chase validation because that chase keeps you distracted from your own power. It's easier to control someone who doubts themselves. It's easier to sell to someone who believes they're incomplete. But when you stop seeking approval, when you start building from within, you become dangerous to that system. You begin to think for yourself, live for yourself, and define your worth on your own terms. And that's when everything changes. You start realizing that rejection doesn't break you anymore. It reveals who's not meant to stand beside you. Criticism doesn't crush you, it sharpens your focus. Silence from others doesn't scare you. It gives you space to listen to your own voice. You start understanding that approval isn't love. Approval is performance. It's the applause you earn for being who others want you to be. Love, on the other hand, is acceptance. It's what you give yourself when you decide that you are enough, right here, right now. Stop waiting for the world to clap for you. The applause isn't coming the way you think it will. Some people will never see your worth until others start celebrating you. And even then, they'll act like they knew it all along. Don't let that discourage you. Let it free you. Because when you stop waiting to be chosen, you realize you've always had the power to choose yourself. There's a certain peace that comes when you finally let go of needing people to understand you. You stop explaining. You stop apologizing for existing the way you do. You stop negotiating your truth just to make others comfortable. You start standing taller, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. You start walking differently, not to impress, but because you finally recognize your worth. And yes, it takes courage to do that, because the world can be loud in its opinions. It can make you question every part of yourself. But the real test of strength isn't found in winning their approval. It's found in refusing to need it. The real victory is when you wake up and realize you don't have to perform anymore. You can breathe. You can exist. You can simply be. Because the day you stop waiting for the world's approval is the day you begin to live with your own. And that is the kind of freedom no one can ever take from you. There will be moments in life when you give your best, your heart, your effort, your truth, and still feel unseen. You'll pour yourself into something, and no one will acknowledge it. You'll speak from the depth of your soul, and people will look away. You'll love, you'll care, you'll try, and it'll seem like it's never enough. But that doesn't mean your value has decreased. It doesn't mean your worth has diminished. It simply means that some people are blind to the kind of light you carry. You can't measure your worth by how others perceive you, because perception is limited by perspective. And most people only see through the narrow lens of their own experience. They see you through filters of their fears, their insecurities, their expectations, and then they call that truth. But it's not truth, it's projection. The moment you start internalizing their blindness, You begin to shrink yourself to fit their comfort zone. You start dulling your shine to make their eyes adjust. You start hiding your depth because they can't swim that far. But tell me, why should your light dim just because someone else refuses to open their eyes? The world often mistakes humility for weakness and confidence for arrogance. If you know your worth, they'll say you're full of yourself. If you doubt your worth, they'll say you're not enough. So either way, you lose when you let them define you. The only real way to win is to know who you are without needing their confirmation. Your value was never supposed to fluctuate based on who notices you. The diamond doesn't lose its value just because it's buried in the dirt. The sun doesn't stop shining just because clouds block the view. You don't become less simply because someone else can't see more. There's something profoundly freeing about realizing that being misunderstood doesn't mean being unworthy. Some people can't recognize your value because they haven't learned to recognize their own. They can't honor your strength because it reminds them of everything they've yet to confront in themselves. And that's not your responsibility to fix. It's not your job to convince anyone of your worth. Your job is to keep showing up as the person you are meant to be, regardless of who claps for you. Sometimes life hides your value on purpose, to teach you how to see it for yourself. It's in those seasons of invisibility that you grow the most. Because when no one else validates you, you're forced to dig deeper, to find something unshakable inside you. You begin to build your confidence not from applause but from integrity. You start to understand that your worth isn't situational, it's foundational. It's the one thing that doesn't change no matter who walks away, who stays silent, or who tries to diminish it. The people meant for you will never make you question your worth. They'll recognize it the moment they see it, because they've done the same work of finding theirs. Until then, stop searching for mirrors in places that only reflect distortion. Stop handing your self-esteem to people who haven't earned the right to shape it. You are not a product waiting for approval. You are not a piece of art needing validation to exist. You are a living, breathing expression of potential, and that in itself is priceless. So when someone overlooks you, when the world seems indifferent to your effort, remind yourself, your value is not up for negotiation. You were valuable before anyone noticed you, and you'll remain valuable long after they forget. The recognition you seek will come, but only after you stop needing it to survive. And when it does, it will feel different because you'll already know who you are. Your worth was never dependent on who could see it. It has always been there, waiting for one person to truly believe in it, you. There will come a time in your life when you'll realize that no matter how clearly you speak, how pure your intentions are, or how much you try to explain yourself, some people will still misunderstand you. They'll twist your words, question your motives, and judge your silence. And the more you try to fix their perception, the more tangled you become in their expectations. It's exhausting, isn't it? That constant effort to make people see what's inside your heart, to prove that your choices have meaning, that your path has purpose. But you can't spend your life translating your soul for people who are committed to misunderstanding your language. You must learn to be at peace with being misunderstood, because misunderstanding doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you're growing in a direction they can't yet see. You're walking a path that others might not have the courage to walk. You're making decisions that don't fit into their limited idea of who you should be. That's the cost of individuality, the price of authenticity. The moment you decide to live by your truth, you automatically become unrecognizable to those still living by fear. And that's okay. You weren't meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be honest with yourself. It takes strength to sit in silence while others misjudge you. It takes maturity to stop defending yourself when you know your heart is pure. There's a quiet kind of power in saying nothing and letting time reveal what words never could. Because truth doesn't need your defense, it needs your consistency. The more you chase after every misconception, the more you lose touch with your own peace. You start fighting ghosts. You start forgetting that not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability. The truth is, people understand you only as deeply as they've understood themselves. When they haven't faced their own pain, they'll misread your healing. When they haven't found their purpose, they'll question your direction. When they haven't learned self-acceptance, they'll project their insecurities onto you. That's human nature. But their misunderstanding isn't a reflection of your failure. It's a reflection of where they are in their own journey. So let them think what they will. You don't have to correct every rumor or justify every decision. You don't have to keep proving that your heart is in the right place. Sometimes peace is found not in being understood, but in being okay with not explaining anymore. When you let go of the need to be understood, something shifts inside you. The noise quiets, the anxiety fades. You begin to realize that peace doesn't come from people agreeing with you. It comes from you agreeing with yourself. You stop performing for the world and start living for your soul. You start to understand that life isn't about convincing others of your worth. It's about embodying it even in silence. And slowly you start to feel free. Being misunderstood doesn't isolate you. It refines you. It teaches you patience, humility, and self-trust. It shows you how to stand still in the storm without needing anyone to hold your hand. It reminds you that you can be whole even when others misinterpret your journey. And maybe, just maybe, the ones who misunderstand you today will look back one day and realize you were never wrong. You were just ahead of your time. So stop trying to be seen by everyone. Stop trying to be understood by those who were never meant to understand your path. Keep walking, keep becoming, keep choosing peace over validation. Because the greatest freedom you'll ever know is when you no longer need the world to understand who you are. You simply live it unapologetically. It's easy to love yourself when life feels aligned, when everything's working in your favor, and when you feel like you're finally becoming who you were meant to be. But what about the parts of you that failed? The versions that made mistakes, said the wrong things, trusted the wrong people, or stayed in places too long out of fear? Most people try to forget those versions of themselves, as if ignoring them will make them disappear. But you can't move forward by abandoning who you used to be. You move forward by embracing every part of your story, by looking at the person you once were and saying, you were doing the best you could with what you knew. Self-acceptance isn't about pretending that everything you've done was right. It's about having compassion for the person who didn't yet know better. We grow by learning from our past, not by resenting it. Every mistake, every heartbreak, every disappointment you've ever experienced shaped you in ways that success never could. It humbled you, it softened you. It made you wise enough to recognize what truly matters. You can't separate yourself from those experiences because they are the very foundation of your strength. The past isn't something to erase. It's something to understand. There's a certain peace that comes when you stop fighting your own timeline. When you stop comparing your present to someone else's highlight reel. When you stop wishing you were further along than you are. The truth is, your journey doesn't have to look perfect for it to be purposeful. Sometimes you're not behind. You're just being refined. Growth often looks like stillness. Healing often looks like confusion. Becoming who you're meant to be is not a straight line. It's a process of breaking, rebuilding, and believing again. And in that process, you'll go through seasons where you don't recognize yourself. You'll feel like you've outgrown the person you once were, but haven't yet become who you're meant to be. That in-between space can feel uncomfortable, even lonely, but that's where transformation happens. That's where you learn to trust the unfolding of your life without needing to have all the answers. You start to understand that the person you're becoming doesn't invalidate who you were. It's simply a continuation of the same story, written with more wisdom this time. It's okay if your past self would never understand your present choices. That's a sign of evolution. You've learned things they hadn't yet discovered. You've let go of things they didn't have the courage to release. You've forgiven people they couldn't. So rather than carrying shame for who you were, carry gratitude. That version of you walked through everything necessary for you to stand here today. You don't need to apologize for your journey, you need to honor it. And as for the person you're becoming, treat them with patience. You're still learning, still stumbling, still growing into your strength. Stop demanding perfection from a work in progress. You're not supposed to have it all figured out. What matters is that you keep showing up, even when you doubt yourself. Because every small act of courage, every moment you choose growth over comfort, is building the future version of you that will look back one day and whisper, "Thank you for not giving up." Accepting every version of yourself means living without the constant pressure to be flawless. It means forgiving your past, appreciating your present, and trusting your future. It means seeing yourself not as broken pieces, but as a masterpiece still in progress. And when you finally do that, when you embrace the person you were, the person you are, and the person you're becoming, you'll realize that you were never incomplete. You were simply unfolding, layer by layer, into the person you were always meant to be. There comes a point in every person's life when they're faced with a difficult choice, to be accepted by others or to stay loyal to themselves. And for most people, that choice isn't easy. It's tempting to bend, to adjust, to mold yourself into something that feels safer, because being different can be lonely. Authenticity often carries a cost. You might lose people, opportunities, or approval, but the greater cost comes when you trade your truth for acceptance. Every time you silence your voice to fit in, you lose a part of yourself. Every time you pretend to be someone you're not, you bury your light a little deeper beneath the expectations of others. It takes courage to stand firm in who you are, especially when the world around you keeps suggesting that you should be someone else. Because being authentic isn't about being rebellious for the sake of defiance. It's about choosing honesty over comfort. It's about standing tall in your principles, even when no one applauds you for it. It's about realizing that your worth doesn't depend on who agrees with you, but on how truthfully you live. And the truth is, authenticity often exposes what isn't meant to stay. When you stop pretending, certain relationships fall away. When you stop agreeing to things that don't align with you, certain doors close. But what remains, what's left after the loss, is real. There's an immense freedom in that. When you stop seeking validation, your decisions start coming from strength, not fear. You begin to feel lighter, clearer, more grounded in who you are. You stop trying to impress people who were never meant to understand your path. You stop apologizing for your feelings, your dreams, your beliefs. You begin to realize that it's better to walk alone in truth than to be surrounded by those who only love a filtered version of you. The moment you stop performing for approval, you rediscover your peace. Authenticity demands self-respect. It asks you to set boundaries, to say no when something violates your values, even if that no costs you comfort. It asks you to speak honestly, even when your voice shakes. It asks you to stay aligned with your convictions, even when that means standing alone in the crowd. And that's not arrogance, that's integrity. There's a quiet strength in the person who refuses to betray themselves just to be liked. The world will try to convince you that blending in is easier, that fitting the mold guarantees acceptance. But what it doesn't tell you is the price of that comfort, the slow erosion of your identity. Because once you start living by someone else's standards, you begin to forget your own. You wake up one day realizing you've built a life that looks right from the outside, but feels wrong on the inside. And no amount of praise can fill that emptiness, so don't be afraid of the cost that comes with authenticity. The right people won't leave when you stand in your truth, they'll find you because of it. The right opportunities won't disappear. They'll align when you're ready for them. Every time you choose your truth, you're building a foundation that can't be shaken by rejection or judgment. Because real confidence doesn't come from being liked. It comes from knowing you stayed true to yourself, even when it wasn't easy. You might lose some things along the way, yes, but what you gain is far greater. You gain yourself. And once you've met the version of you who no longer compromises her truth for anyone's comfort, you'll never want to be anyone else again. Because no matter what it costs, authenticity always pays you back in peace. At some point, you have to stop asking the world for permission to exist. You have to stop waiting for someone to tell you that you're enough, that you're worthy, that you're finally allowed to be who you are. Because the truth is, if you spend your life chasing acceptance, you'll never find peace. The more you try to please the world, the more you lose yourself. And the moment you begin molding your identity around others' opinions, you hand over your power. You become a reflection of their expectations instead of a manifestation of your truth. Becoming the person who no longer needs the world's acceptance isn't about arrogance or indifference. It's about freedom. It's about reclaiming the right to define yourself. It's about learning that your worth doesn't fluctuate based on approval, applause, or recognition. It's about realizing that the only acceptance that truly matters is the kind that comes from within. The kind that doesn't need validation to exist. There's a point where you'll notice how exhausting it is to keep performing for others. To act confident when you're uncertain, to smile when you're hurting, to fit into spaces that require you to shrink. You'll realize how heavy it feels to carry a mask for too long. And when you finally put that mask down, yes, it might feel uncomfortable at first. You might lose people who only loved your performance. You might lose opportunities that demanded your silence. But what you'll gain is something no one can give you: self-respect. When you no longer depend on the world's acceptance, rejection stops controlling you. You stop trying to prove your worth to people who have already made up their minds. You stop over-explaining your choices to those who never listened to understand. And you start living with a deeper sense of peace, because you realize that you don't need to be chosen to be valuable. You don't need to be celebrated to have purpose. You don't need to be understood to be real. The moment you stop craving the world's approval, you create space for authenticity to grow. You begin to walk differently, not because you think you're above anyone, but because you finally understand that your value isn't dependent on anyone. You begin to speak more truthfully, to make decisions that align with who you are rather than what will be applauded. And slowly, you realize that the world's rejection isn't something to fear, it's something to thank. Because every door that closes on you simply redirects you toward one that opens within you. You see, acceptance from others is conditional. It depends on your alignment with their ideals, their comfort, their narrative. But self-acceptance is unconditional. It's saying, I love who I am, even when others don't understand me. That kind of love doesn't waver with circumstances. It doesn't crumble under criticism. It becomes your anchor in a world that's constantly shifting. When you reach that place, you stop running. You stop chasing love, attention, and validation. Instead, you start radiating something rare: contentment. You become grounded, unshaken by praise, untouched by rejection. People feel it, they notice it, they might even envy it. Because while they're still searching for acceptance out there, you've already found it in here. And that's what it truly means to become powerful. Not in control of others, but in control of yourself. When you stop needing the world to accept you, you finally meet the version of you that can lead, create, and love without fear. You meet the version of you that was buried beneath years of seeking approval. The greatest freedom you will ever experience is when you no longer look outside yourself for permission to feel worthy. Because once you fully accept who you are, the world's acceptance becomes optional, and your peace becomes permanent. At the end of the day, this entire journey, learning to embrace yourself even when the world doesn't, is about coming home to who you truly are. It's about realizing that the world's silence, rejection, or misunderstanding does not define your value. What defines you is the courage to stand firm in your truth when everything around you tries to pull you away from it. You are not here to be universally liked. You are here to be real. You are not meant to blend in. You are meant to live in color, even when others only see in black and white. The moment you stop begging for acceptance and start choosing authenticity, your life begins to change. You stop chasing validation and start building peace. You stop apologizing for your existence and start standing in it. You begin to see that every version of you, the broken, the healing, the growing, was necessary for you to become whole. And maybe the world will never fully understand you. Maybe some people will still misjudge you, criticize you, or doubt you. But none of that matters, because the power isn't in being understood. It's in being unshakably yourself, regardless. The world doesn't need another person pretending to be perfect. It needs someone brave enough to be real. So walk your path with your head held high. Speak your truth softly but firmly. Love yourself fiercely. Because once you truly embrace who you are, even when the world doesn't, you become unstoppable.